Let's get right to our panel now. Joining us now is political strategist Angela Rye. My colleague and co-host of The Cycle, Crystal Ball, is with me in New York, and Jonathan Capehart is resplendent on the North Lawn at the White House. Jonathan, there are lots of cavemen in the shadows, so it's a good thing we find you right there next to the White House. And we will get to the latest episode of Men Behaving Badly in a second. But first, let's listen now as the First Lady confronts a heckler last night in Washington, D.C. This is new tape. Take a listen to this.
One of the things that I don't do well is this.
Now, Jonathan, this exchange came as the First Lady confronted a heckler, as you know, who wants the President to sign an executive order protecting the LGBT community from discrimination. White House Press Secretary Jay Carney says she acquitted herself, I'm quoting him, brilliantly. You wrote about this. What do you think?
I think, look, the First Lady wasn't having it last night. She was speaking very passionately about children during that fundraiser, and she was heckled. I thought she handled herself, yes, as Jay Carney said, brilliantly, and I think appropriately. Look, she's not the President of the United States. Her husband is. And the heckler, Ellen Sturz, she wants the President to sign an executive order protecting LGBT Americans in their jobs, the folks who work for federal contractors. That's what she's fighting for.
Right.
The First Lady did the right thing by standing up for herself. The heckler was rude and inappropriate in the venue and the timing of what she had to say, but the substance of what she had to say was right.
Okay, well, Crystal, do you agree? Because there's some suggestion that the President had previously intimated that he would sign something like an executive order that would protect LGBT people in the workplace, in the federal workplace, which is around 20% of employees.
Right.
What's your reaction to the way the First Lady handled it?
I think Jonathan Capehart said it brilliantly just now. I think he said it brilliantly in his column. The First Lady was, responded in a graceful manner. She's responded in a forceful manner, totally within her rights. But the heckler here was raising what is a very important issue, and I can certainly understand why she, as a lesbian, is very upset about the President not signing an executive order. There's also a split here in the LGBT rights community between those who want to work together with the administration, with the Democratic Party, and those who want to engage in more sort of direct action techniques. There's been this divide and there's been a tension between those two groups, but much like I think the First Lady and this heckler were well within their rights in their responses, I think both of those approaches are needed. You need to work together with the administration and with the Congress and with Democrats who are on your side. You also need to sometimes call attention to issues like this executive order that haven't gotten a lot of attention, and sometimes you have to be a little obnoxious to call attention to those things.
Angela, the fact is, this President has been more responsive to the LGBT community than any of his predecessors.
Well, Martin, I think that that's only part of the point. I think we also have a president who's been very hopeful and optimistic about engaging through another side or another branch of the government, and that is the legislative branch. Earlier on, he planned on addressing these issues through the legislative processes, and what we found is that the legislators continue not to want to work with him, at least on the House side. So the president is now, we have Exhibit A today. He's appointed Susan Rice. They don't have to confirm her. He didn't have to nominate her. That's his pick. I think that this is setting the tone for how he will continue to move forward in his second term. He will continue to use the power of the executive order, federal rulemakings, and maybe there'll be another commission, who knows? But I think the president will definitely continue to utilize the force of his pen, his bully pulpit, and act as a commander-in-chief.
And what the president and his administration point to is there were calls for him to unilaterally end the policy of don't ask, don't tell, which he resisted and did end up working through the legislature, and that ended up being very successful. On this particular issue, it's hard to see how he would be able to get this particular protection for LGBT individuals through the House as controlled by Republicans, which is why there's the pressure to do it through an executive order.
Okay, well, let's move on. Jonathan, tempers are flaring this week, especially at the Senate Armed Services Committee. Here's Senator Claire McCaskill, Democrat of Missouri. Take a listen to this.
I just want to say this on the record. General Franklin in the Alviano case, when he felt compelled to justify what he had done, he wrote, have you all read his letter that he wrote? Okay, I recommend you read it, because it was astoundingly ignorant. He opened it that she didn't get a ride home when she had a chance. Are you freaking kidding me?
So she's talking there, Jonathan, about an individual case where, as so often happens, it appears the victim is being blamed. Now, that's bad enough. But perhaps even worse is that people still don't seem to get that rape is not about sex, it is about violence. Have we forgotten that?
Well, apparently so, and apparently there are members of Congress, members of the armed services, particularly in the leadership, who haven't quite figured that out. And that's why what Senator McCaskill is doing and what Senator Gillibrand especially has been doing through these hearings is trying to drive this message home that the way they are thinking is the wrong way to think, and that they've got to change not just attitudes, but the culture within the military to ensure that these sexual assaults not only don't happen again, but that it doesn't occur to people, and that the leadership, when they see it happening, it doesn't have to be something that's so flagrantly abusive that even a caveman can look and say, oh, you know, that's not quite right. But to recognize behaviors and patterns to ensure that, you know, you put a stop to it before it becomes something really, really bad.
Well, and I think the issue in particular that these senators were trying to highlight is the fact that right now, if a woman or a man is sexually assaulted in the military, they have to report that to their commander. Now, that commander may know their attacker personally. That commander may even have been their attacker. And so you have a situation where there is a problem from top to bottom. There is a large rate of sexual assault in the military. There is a huge problem of underreporting. Then, after they have, if the woman or the man is courageous enough to report, there is a very low level of the perpetrators being brought to trial. There is a very low level of conviction. So you have a problem really from top to bottom. And the key thing here is that we have to take outside of the line of command that initial reporting so that women and men alike feel safe to come forward and expose the problem when it happens.
Angela, it struck me that when I was listening to some of that hearing, it was almost as if those within the military didn't seem to register the wider view in our society that this sort of crime is reprehensible and unacceptable.
Well, it's been hidden so long, and so part of even the challenges and the issues that a lot of the military folks who are present had with Senator Gillibrand's bill is about change. Nobody wants to change, right. You know, the overall culture, and so at the end of the day, you have to look at why we have inspector generals and agencies throughout the executive branch. Why are there ombudsman types? And the reason why is because a lot of times, as Crystal talked about, when you have personal relationships and connections with people that are your subordinates, or maybe it's you with the problem, it's really hard to create change without having an outsider looking in and really trying to get someone through and resolving that issue.
Absolutely. Angela Rye, Crystal Ball, Jonathan Capehart, I wish we had more time, but thank you all so much.
Thanks, Martin.
Thank you, Martin.
Coming up, how else can we say this? It's time to abolish the IRS.